All right, today we're going to dive into a framework that's all about helping our AI agents break free from, well, just thinking in straight lines. It's called LangGraph, and it's a game changer because it teaches AI to reason in these dynamic, intelligent circles, a lot closer to how our own brains actually work.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever been building an AI agent and it just feels rigid? Like it's stuck on some one-way script and can't deviate? If that sounds familiar, then you've absolutely hit this fundamental wall that a lot of the early AI frameworks were built around.
Okay, think of it like this. A simple AI workflow, that's like a straight country road. Sure, it'll get you from point A to point B, but that's all it can do. LangGraph, on the other hand, is more like a bustling city grid. You can loop around the block, you can take a detour if there's traffic, or, new information, and you can even go back to a place you've already been. It's just so much more dynamic, flexible, and honestly, a lot closer to how we actually solve problems in the real world.
So to really get why LangGraph is such a big deal, we first need to talk about the problem it was designed to solve. And that is what I like to call AI's straight line problem. You see, a lot of the early tools for LLMs were based on something called directed acyclic graphs, or DAGs for short. Now, don't let the technical term scare you. It's really just a fancy way of saying a one-way street. Once you go from step A to step B, there's no turning back. And look, that's totally fine for simple, predictable tasks. But when it comes to sophisticated reasoning, that's just not how it works.
And that right there gets to the absolute core of the issue. Real advanced intelligence isn't a straight line, it's a cycle, right? You think about something, you do something, you see what happens, and then you use that new information to think again. That whole process requires loops and the ability to adapt on the fly, things that the old one-way model just wasn't built for. And this is exactly why LangGraph was created. It was built to let AI agents finally break free from that straight line and start, well, thinking in circles. So, what is LangGraph exactly? Well, at its heart, it's an open-source library from the amazing team at LangChain. It uses a graph structure to let you build these really complex, stateful AI agents. And the magic ingredient here is that it allows for loops, branches, and that cyclical reasoning we've been talking about. Basically, all the stuff that those old linear workflows just can't handle. Okay, so how does LangGraph actually pull this off? It all comes down to an architecture that's built on three really simple but incredibly powerful pillars. Pillar number one is state. You can think of this as the agent's brain or its shared memory. It's this one central place, a data structure, that every single part of the application can look at and write to. This is what gives it persistence, so the memory sticks around. And it allows for checkpointing, which means the agent can save its work and pick up right where it left off. This is absolutely fundamental for any kind of long-running, intelligent task. Next up, we have the nodes. These are your doers, your action takers. Each node is basically a Python function that does one specific job. Maybe it calls an LLM to write something, or it uses a tool to search the web. They're the building blocks, the fundamental units of work that get things done. And then, tying it all together, we have the edges. So if the nodes are the workers, you can think of the edges as the project managers. They're the ones directing the traffic, making all the decisions about which node gets to run next. And this, right here, is where the real magic happens. It's the edges that let the agent branch off in a new direction or loop back and try again if, say, a tool didn't work the first time.
So when you put it all together, the whole picture becomes super clear, right? You've got state, which is the shared memory. You've got nodes, which do all the work. And you've got edges, which handle all the logic. With just these three building blocks, you can start to construct some incredibly complex and really intelligent agent behaviors. But this architecture isn't just some clever idea on a whiteboard, it's a solid foundation for building really robust, production-ready applications. Let's dig into how that works.
What's so great is that this graph-based model gives you some seriously powerful features right out of the box. We're talking about things like automated retries, running tasks in parallel to speed things up, and streaming results back smoothly. Now, anyone who's tried knows that building this stuff from scratch is a nightmare. But with LangGraph, they're treated like first-class citizens. And maybe one of the most critical features this enables is what's called human-in-the-loop oversight. This is huge. It means LangGraph can literally pause the entire workflow at any point you tell it to, wait for a real person to come in and approve or maybe even change the agent's plan, and then, and only then, does it resume. For any kind of high-stakes task where you need a human sanity check, this is absolutely essential. This kind of flexibility also opens the door to some seriously powerful multi-agent systems. I mean, you can create a supervisor agent that's basically the team lead, routing tasks out to other specialized agents. Or you could even build entire hierarchical teams of agents, each with its own manager, all working together to tackle a massive problem. LangGraph gives you the framework to orchestrate that whole complex dance.
Okay, so with all this power at your fingertips, the million-dollar question is, when should you actually reach for LangGraph instead of maybe a simpler tool?
Let me give you a really simple rule of thumb here. If what you're building is a pretty predictable step-by-step process, then honestly, a simple framework like vanilla LangChain is probably perfect. But the second your application needs loops or complex branching logic or long-term memory, or especially if you need multiple agents to work together, that's when LangGraph really shines and becomes the obvious choice.
And just to be super clear about this, LangGraph doesn't replace LangChain. Not at all. It extends it. The best way to think about it is as a powerful, low-level engine that lives inside the same ecosystem. You still get to use all the awesome tools from LangChain. You just use LangGraph to wire them together in much, much more sophisticated ways.
And one last thing. For those of you who are thinking about deploying this stuff at enterprise scale, there's an important distinction to make. The open-source LangGraph library gives you that core framework we've been talking about, but there's also a commercial LangGraph platform. That version provides all the managed infrastructure for you. It handles the persistence, the auto-scaling, the fault tolerance, all the hard stuff, basically.
So, as we wrap things up here, I want to leave you with a question to think about for your next AI project. Is the problem you're trying to solve a simple highway, or is it more like a complex city grid that needs careful navigation? Because your answer to that question will tell you if it's time to build an AI that can finally think in circles.